Hello and welcome everyone. We are live for another AFL Fantasy Fanatics Tuesday night Q&A ahead of round 22. And for people listening back to the pod, it is Tuesday, the 6th of August. I'm your host, Bales, and you can find me at BalesDT across the socials, and we only have 3 more weeks to go. So for some of us, that'll be upsetting, like myself, but for others, they'll be like, good, we can finally have a break after such a long season. But joining me is my fellow co-host and AFL Fantasy Fanatic. It is Jordox, mate. How are you?
Yes, very good, mate. It is a strange time of year because a lot of people are, their season's cooked in terms of rankings. But for those playing leagues, it's just heating up. So it's exciting times there. But like you said, I think once it's all done, it'll be good to take a breath.
Yeah, exactly right. Or like me, just moving on to the AFLW fantasy side of it.
Well,
so,
that's right.
No rest for the fantasy wicked is what I like to say. So that's on my end. Tim will be joining us at some point throughout the show. So we'll touch about the Content Creators Cup and the upcoming prelim finals then. But one of the prelim finalists, and as people have anointed him, the Godfather of the AFL fantasy community, one of third of the traders, it is Warnie, mate. How are you? How's things going? Only 3 weeks to go.
Yeah, good, Bales. Counting down. It's looking forward to the end of the season. It's been a great year. It's been an awesome year. I think it's been one of the most interesting seasons that we've had for a while. I think that's always a positive thing. We always talk about with our stuff is that there's not really many times that you have to stretch yourselves to find content or anything. Like there's something all the time, and this season's been another one of those. I think where it has been crazy with the amount of different stuff going on, the way the game's been played. I think, it's still in a way like anyone's game at this stage. Like people are making some big jumps. I know like my ranking is, more than halved in the last couple of weeks, really, last 3 or 4 weeks. And so stuff like that is pretty cool for the game. And even like our race to the Hilux is big, people getting into the top 100, but also these league finals are pretty crazy, especially when you can be knocking off a bloke in the top 10, like I have in the last couple of weeks in the Content Creators Cup. So that's pretty exciting.
Yes, exactly right. And we will preview those 2 matchups. Before we get into fantasy, obviously not only fantasy's been wacky, but this AFL season has been wacky. Like who would have thought Sydney beating Port by 112 points? But as a Bombers man yourself, Warnie, obviously big win for your boys on the weekend. What do you think? You reckon your boys make finals in the end, or
it was pretty exciting to watch? But yeah, I think they will miss out. And we've got a little bit of a Bombers group chat that goes on, and to be honest, I just wanted us to lose because I just don't want any hope, because you get on there and you think that there's some chance that you could get there, and you work out all the permutations of the finals, and I just don't want it because anyway,
it's the hope that kills you.
It does. And that was, I think I grabbed the meme from, the quote from Shawshank where hope can drive a man insane. And that's what it's like as a Bombers supporter at the moment, because, yeah, the thing is, I think the worst part was that obviously the draw has been friendly in the first half of the year and probably gave us a little bit of false hope there. And then, but then you lose some shocking games that you shouldn't lose. Anyway. Yada, yada, yada. That's the story of being an Essendon supporter for the last 20 years. So that's life. But fingers crossed things are moving in a better direction than they might have been.
Yeah, exactly. And then Jordox, as Crowies fans ourselves, are we going to finish above 15th or are we going to stay in 15th?
I can't see us moving in any direction. I just hope we keep putting in performances like the weekend. Actually, it's funny, the game on the weekend, Warnie, the finish, when Merrick got it to Durham for the point, it was almost the exact same as in the Crows game, except instead of the hit-up kick, he went in the handball. It was like deja vu.
Yeah, and that must be a bit of a play, I guess. That's the thing. Yeah. It was pretty good. They did a great job. That was pretty awesome to see that sort of finish there with that. They were smart, which is something that you can't say the Bombers have been a lot of.
Well, they learned the lessons of 3-4 weeks ago, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. But boys, we'll chat a couple of fantasy things going around this weekend. So I'll start off with the most traded in player being Matthias Philippou and James Peatling. That's sort of been a pretty sort of common comparison over the past probably fortnight or so. Obviously more so this week, just gone with Philippou coming back. Warnie, is it as simple as saying that it's Philippou, the option, just with the obviously Josh Kelly is available this week for the Giants, Cogs the test, so both those guys could be back. Is it clearly Philippou at this stage for you now?
I think it has to be. You've got to play the percentages there. And he's got I guess you'd call it the confirmed role. The fact that he came straight back in, was able to play the role that we liked prior to his quad injury there. So was it quad? Hip? I can't remember. Something around that area anyway. But whatever it was, he's got a role, and the Saints are cooked. I think they want to keep playing that as well. And that's probably the smart thing to do. That's sort of the interesting thing at this part of the season. We can see some things mixed up, and players tried in some different spots, but I think the Saints should be doing that. So that's as simple as it is. And if Kelly's back, Cogs is probably the bigger issue for him, but I think for me, it's the fact that it's a really simple one, really, just to go the poo over the Pete is where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree. Jordox, so we obviously, I think we probably all saying Philippou, I think, is the option. If you had a Peatling, would you move Peatling to Philippou? Would you have both? If you had Philippou, would you grab Peatling as well and use those two as a loop? Where are you sitting with these guys?
Yeah, well, I'm in that exact spot. I got Peatling last week because I wanted to have a look at Philippou first. But I think, like Warnie said, he's the clear choice there, not just because of the run he's got to go home with. So he's got... Tigers, Cats, and Blues for the next 3. But in this role he's averaging 102 in this new role. And look at who he did it against. So the first week was against Sydney, who, have gone on to be quite
as well.
Poor. Yeah. Then he did against the Crows, and it's not hard to score against the Crows, but that night was really wet in Adelaide, and he scored really well. And then on the weekend, he's done it against a Brisbane midfield who beat him by like nearly 100 points. So I think we're only just scratching the surface of what Philippou can do. We might not see that till 2025, but for the next few weeks with that run home, absolutely. Quick comment on Peatling, though. So Kelly back, Cogs may be back this week, probably more likely the week after. I wouldn't be surprised if Cogs played a little bit more forward in the next few weeks. When he came back a few weeks ago, I think it was against the Crows, he played a lot forward. And I think even though we've seen Peatling dropped when Cornelius come back in earlier in the year, the role that Peatling's played and how well he's played the last couple of weeks, I'd be really surprised if the Giants just shipped him out for the next few weeks. So I think both are good options, but I like the poo.
Yep, I agree. And we have got our other third of the AFL Fantasy Fanatics crew. It is Guesty, mate. How are you?
Third wheel on it, mate. I'm good. I finished work a little bit late tonight, so I'm still driving home, but I thought I would jump on and have a bit of listen, but I'll sit in the background and let the boys give the advice. Good to see the Godfather on the pod as well, mate.
Hey, Guesty, how are you? Yeah, good, mate. Good.
So I reckon at this point, because you're on, Tim, I thought I'd hold off until you're on, and we'll go through the Content Creators Cup. They got the prelim finals coming up, and two of the members are in the prelim finals this week, and not facing each other, but maybe facing each other in the grand final. So before we get into the prelim finals, as always, I'll read it out because I know Tim is driving, so we don't want Tim reading out and then drive while he's doing that. So the AFL Fantasy Content Creators Cup is proudly brought to you by Infinite Wealth. Make smarter financial decisions. And it's gone. And where's it gone? Okay, here we go. Because I'm not used to doing this. Anyway, that's not a great start. Anyway, make smarter financial decisions where winning coaches will get up to $5,000 for their favorite charity. And I'll hand over to Tim in a second for the special announcement in regards to a few live things happening there. But if you have a mortgage, Tim can teach you how to pay it off up to 3 times faster. If you're paying too much tax, Tim can also teach you how to save thousands each year. And if you are someone who's committed to building your wealth, then Tim can also show you how he bought 13 properties by the age of 27. So head across to infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy to claim your free financial freedom masterclass and a stack of tool and resources to help you make smarter financial decisions. And Tim will send you an exclusive invite in the next 2 weeks. In regards to, Tim, do you want to let the listeners know what you've got going on?
Yeah, so we have something called a one-day intensive, which is our one-day training program. This is where all our clients come to and get taught basically everything that I can teach them about building their wealth. And what I'm going to do is I am going to open it up to AFL fantasy coaches to observe. You guys are pretty lucky. I let you get access to all sorts of stuff. My clients pay thousands of dollars for. But yeah, well, if you're interested in coming to the event, look, just register on that link, infowealth.com.au/AFL fantasy, and we'll send an invite out in the next week or two and let you know more details of the event. But it's Saturday, the 31st of August in Perth at the Camfield, 8:30 registration, 9 o'clock start, 6 o'clock finish. It's bye week, so you won't be missing out on any footy or having to worry about your loopholes or anything like that. But yeah, if you want to come, register on the link and we'll send you an invite.
Beautiful. No, get amongst it. And then Jared and Corey as well, thank you for your super chats. We'll get to them just in a second, but we will chat through the two prelim finals in the Content Creators Cup. So obviously, Warnie, it's a great time we get you on. I remember I missed you a couple of weeks ago and you said, yeah, this date works well. And it works out well because right ahead of the prelim final, you are taking on the other half of the Ball Boys, Luke, who has had a good run in the last bit. But Warnie, just want to get your thoughts on that last round. You beat Roy, knocked him out of the top four, and then you snuck into the top four and got double chance, which has helped you get here. So just your thoughts on the season of the Content Creators Cup, and then your thoughts on the matchup against Luke this week.
Well, full transparency, Bales, the way the comp's set up, because unless I create a league, I can't see any other leagues. Like, all it does is puts in all the leagues that I get put into, and the random ones. Like, I'm in these random leagues all over the shop. So I've got my main leagues that I've created. So poor old Roy and Cow, because they're hopeless and they don't even create leagues. So all they see in their leagues are these random ones where they're in. So we don't get to see it, which is a shame, because it's always nice to go head-to-head. So I hang on your tweets that come out and things like that to see how the matchups went for the weekend. So I actually probably should get the whips cracking on you on that, because you forget sometimes, or you do it late, and I want to know.
Yeah, last month of the season, I forgot to put an update. So
maybe that was strategic, Bales.
So, or anyway, Bales. The Warn Dogs, they're coming home strong, and like sort of, it's been the last month or so being able to climb up pretty well in the rankings and get my team together. I think we're all at that sort of point of the that completed side. We've been there for a little while now, but I think that's what's been interesting about this season too, is that maybe the decisions that I've made, I didn't make them as quick as other people had to do. So, for example, a Brian Myers, I might have been trying to complete him in my forward line 2 or 3 weeks before I was in a position to do that. So, and I feel like, well, Brian Myers burnt in 2 of the last 3 weeks type thing. So he hasn't been a member of my side, and I've sort of got away with other players, such as, I'm a Simpkin there instead. So that type of stuff has been interesting. I think that's what's interesting about the season. But yeah, anyway, they've come together pretty well. Some of those midfielders sort of got the right choices there. And obviously the Rucks has been a big one too, like being able to have X doing what he has. And it's been amazing really to see that there are coaches without him, which is a pretty crazy thing to think about how good he has been this season. Almost that, is he the fantasy MVP of the year? He's pretty close to it considering his starting price. So, it's just to see all that sort of stuff. And then when you can nail one of those big 150 captains, it does help a lot.
Yeah, the scars are opening up for the last 2 weeks of me not owning X or having NPC. But looking at the matchup, you and Luke have only got 3 players different before trade. So just for listeners, just to sort of hear the differences. So Warnie's got Dunkley, Marshall, and Mason Wood, who Wood just has got a really good matchup this week. So in a good spot there. And then Luke has got Butters, English, and Dylan Moore. So obviously we get differences with trades. It's going to be very, very tight. So, well, Jordox has a sort of outside party looking into the matchup. Who do you think will take that the matchup out with those three uniques?
Well, if they stayed the same, I'd probably say Luke, but I reckon Warnie might be trading Mason Wood.
Mason Wood is probably going to be going. The other one there, you wouldn't think that English is staying there, I reckon, for Luke, and I reckon Luke will be matching that, trying to get the X there. So it could be down to 2
So you could go Wood to Moore. You just have one player each, Dunkley versus Butters. That would be
amazing. Would that be amazing to watch? That'd be crazy, yeah. So I don't know exactly what that'll look like, but I don't think Mason would have been my team, and I'm tipping that he will be getting rid of English this week. So it could be 2 differences.
Yeah, exactly right. It's going to be very, very close there. I would get Tim's thoughts, but he's gone. So I don't know where he's gone to, but I'm sure he'll be back. And then in terms of the other prelim final, it is myself up against Mitch. So I think I've got a top 10 coach is certainly not what you want in a prelim final, but hopefully the boys have had a week off, put the feet up, and hopefully with Mitch losing a few of his last few games. So I'm hoping that I've got him. Hopefully he's focusing on the Hilux and everything.
He's beatable.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully he's looking on that. But we've got a few differences. So we've got currently we've got 2, 4, 6, 7 differences. That's including my own trades I've done. So whether he obviously does a few things, it will be interesting to see. But I've currently got Martin, Young, Dunkley, Green, Rosie, Cherry, and Philippou as differences. And Mitch has got Dacos, Jordan Clark, Brayshaw, Laird, Walsh, English, and then one of Peatling or Myers. So it'll be very interesting. So, boys, who do you think takes this game out? And don't just say me because I'm on the call. I want to sort of hear if you think Mitch will win and or if you think I'll win. So I'll start. Warnie, who do you reckon takes it out?
Oh, well, you'd have to back in the bloke sitting up higher, and Bales, you've probably been sliding a little bit too. I did have a little bit of a look at our rankings, and it might be a chance to overtake you. 300 spots, I think it is. So I wonder if that's achievable over these next 3 weeks. But yeah, I think Mitch would have to, but I would like Mitch just to have that confidence boost as well, because he probably needs it at the moment. I work with a bloke called Roy who whinges and moans about fantasy football more than anyone, but I think he's got some competition the way Mitch is carrying on at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it goes up. I imagine it goes up a whole nother level when there's a car involved. Yeah. So I can only imagine how stressful that would be.
Exactly. But hopefully Mitch goes well with the overall rankings, but hopefully I can score more than him. So Jordox, who do you reckon takes it out?
Oh, you've got him covered, Bales. You're just being modest.
It'll be very interesting to see. I picked Mitch as my preseason winner just based on the fact he won it last year. So it'd be nice to knock off the person I thought was going to win it. That'd be good. So, and hopefully I'll be playing one of the Warn Dogs or Luke in the grand final. But we'll see how that goes. But we'll get to some questions. So we do have a couple of super chats from Jared and Corey. So we'll get to these two first. So Jared V's got the first one here, and he says, fellas, with some people getting burnt by trading for matchups, is it better to upgrade bench rookies and look at Philippou at F7 or even Duggan at D7? So, Warnie, what are your thoughts on playing a bit of this looping game in your defense and your forward line?
Certainly is probably the way to play, I think. And you can, the way obviously a rolling lockout works as well, and looking at where the Saints are playing, second last game for this round, you can hold off on that move too if you needed to. So like the Pooh, for example, if you're bringing him at that F7, you can make that decision. So put your emergency on whoever it is. Like, is it a Peatling? Is it someone like that? Whoever it is. As long as all your finances work, and we're sort of in a position where your finances probably do. Like if you've got Dowling sitting there at the moment, he's a really good example of that. That's a pretty easy move to one of these other potential S7 type plays. So it probably is, because I think we do get a little bit stuck in trying to find the top end and the premiums, and we've seen how many people failed. I did a little bit of a segment on the podcast this week talking about all those little moves of how many people had negatives from their trades, and again, that bloke I work with, Roy, he whinges and moans about stuff, but over the last few weeks, like, he has been better off if he didn't trade. So is it that sort of play to work with those bench moves to do that? Not a bench move just to cash out, but like to try to be finding that F7 type move. And the Duggan one is quite an interesting one as well, because you think that he has an ability to score. Obviously he did on the weekend, but again, you still want to be doing that. You still got to have some matchups in mind, I think, as well, when you are making those moves. You're not sort of just going, oh, this guy looks like he could score there or whatever. Have a real good think about who they're playing and how that might work out. But yeah, I think I like that, because getting burnt on one of those sideways premium moves, like at the moment I don't really care about giving stuff away. I said it on the podcast, but like if I'm looking at trading out a Nick Martin for a Jack Sinclair, that could easily go the wrong way. Like we know that, and how many times this year would have Nick Martin outscored him? And the reason I'm doing it is a bit of role stuff, like Dersma being out with that hammy might push him to that wing for longer periods of the game. But it's just one of those types of things that you go, those premiums, almost every single move you're looking at could go wrong.
Yep, exactly.
And it invariably does.
Yeah, that's the story of this game, isn't it?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And as I said on Sunday, I would not have picked Luke Ryan to outscore Adam Treloar on the weekend, but trade him out. Knew Luke Ryan was going to go. And also, Tim's just jumped back on, Warnie. I think Tim would have liked when you said, make sure all your finances are good when looking at F7 and D7. So that's a good one there. And we'll go to this super chat from Corey. So thanks, obviously, Jared, and then Corey as well for this. Josh, go to you for this one. So thoughts on English to Marshall and Newman from Tom Green or Martin to Turan. Hang on. So you're going English to Marshall and then Tom Green to Newman, or would you go Martin to Taranto and English to Marshall? So yeah, it's literally going. Are you going Tom Green to Newman or Nick Martin to Taranto?
Yeah. I reckon. All right. So English and Marshall. It looks like he's doing English to Marshall regardless. So we could move that to the side. So then it's just Tom Green to Newman or Nick Martin to Taranto. Out of those two, I'd be more comfortable jumping off Nick Martin than I would Tom Green for a couple of reasons. I think Green will bounce back from the weekend. Before that, he'd gone, 6 tons in a row, 3 120s in that period, whereas Nick Martin's trending down. You good, Timmy? I guess Tim thinks to get rid of Tom Green based on that. So yeah, for me, Nick Martin at Taranto would be the good one to go with your English to Marshall move.
Yeah,
Timmy,
exactly.
Are you good? All right. Well, as long as there's no more road rage, we'll be right.
Oh, that's funny. But we'll. Yeah. But then again, would you? I'm just looking at Corey's question here, Jordox. If you can go Tom Green to Newman, could he go? Would you go Nick Martin to Newman over Taranto? Would you potentially do that trade instead?
Yeah, I mean, people are pretty big on Newman. I like Taranto for, he'd be quite unique, and I think he could finish pretty well. Tigers don't have much else in the midfield at the minute, so he's the main man. So if he can stay fit, I can see him going pretty close to what Newman does. Maybe not the ceiling, but I think he's a pretty good pick for the last few weeks, Taranto, so I don't mind it.
Yeah, agreed. Perfect. Well, Warnie, you going to say something there?
I was just going to say, I guess the thing is you are taking probably a bit of a punt with Taranto, but yeah, he's got a decent enough run there. And I reckon a bit of that might be about the pricing of the players, I suppose, with that being an option. So it'd be a nice, unique one. If you are looking for that sort of unique play, it would be a good one, whether that's a leg up in a matchup that you've got going on, or it could be that one you take on. I don't think you lose out too badly from it, but you could actually go pretty well if you see that bit of a ceiling from Taranto, which we know he can do. And something exciting I know is definitely in my black book already for 2025.
Absolutely. Bales, you just jumped on Newman, so you're obviously loving life. Are you nervous he's going to drop a 70 though? Do you have any concerns that, because he's one of those 140 to 70 guys, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think I am, because we saw this last year for one with Newman, that he can put up these big scores, especially back half of the year. But it's more about the matchups coming up as well, right? So he's got Hawthorn this week, which Hawthorn have been tricky to score against. We just did see Lockie Whitfield score 137 against them at Manuka. This is at the MCG, so obviously can't play a lot of the games there. So Newman familiar with the ground. And then they finished with West Coast and St Kilda. And that West Coast game, I know West Coast can be harder for defenders in certain matchups, but I just feel that Carlton, if they get out to a lead, trying to get some form heading into finals, they could just chip the ball around for last quarter, and Newman could have a big sort of game there. And then the Saints, obviously at Marvel, that's a very, very good fixture. So I'm sort of not as concerned. And a few of those lower scores since the bye, really for all season, have come in harder games. So you got a 73 against North, tough matchup. Giants and 11, tough matchup. Even the Bombers before the bye as well, 87 was tougher before the bye. And then you look at like a few low scores at the start of the year, which we know Newman has got, but that was when Zach Williams is playing in defence as well. So I think he's a very good pick. I see him as probably almost see him as the number 3 defender behind Whitfield and probably maybe Sheasel are probably the two I like there. Maybe Stewart, maybe he's probably the guy you could have above him as well. But those guys up there. So, but we might have Tim back. Tim, we got you back.
So, boys, real warning here: don't podcast and drive, because you might have a car accident.
Oh no!
I drove up the back of someone. So look, everyone's good. It's all fucking, no big deal, no major damage or anything like that. But I legit fucking smashed into the back of someone's car.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what insurance is for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have to get someone to buff the marks out of the Bentley now.
Yeah. I might have to.
Aye.
Might have to put a little clip out of this and do PSA, podcast at the same time. So.
But it does come with a good community reminder. Don't podcast and drive.
Exactly.
No, we've all been there.
Yeah, you never know. This advert will be on TV, telling people about it. So
As long as you're
maybe
right,
not, because my insurance company might not pay out then. But
oh, hopefully everything is all good there.
everyone's all good.
Yeah, beautiful. We'll go to this question from Gareth Evans. He said, "Hey legends, trade advice on Dacos and Young to Sinclair, and then one of Dacos and Young to Sinclair, and then Simpkin to Philippou." So, Warnie, what are your thoughts on? Firstly, who would you go to Dacos and Young to Sinclair, and then Simpkin to Philippou? Would you be doing that? And because Gareth also says he can do Sarong to Steele as well. So I'll pop the question up. Just might be a bit easier as well, just because there's a few things going on. So that's what he's looking at doing there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting. So Dacos and Young, like they're on the chopping block as such. I find it really hard, and maybe this is because my side isn't as good as what other people's might be. I'd find it really hard to trade Dacos. I see all the logic in it. Last week, saw that sitting there, and then it didn't really, although his score wasn't awesome. But the fears of that was Chincotta, and I don't think that really came to the fruition that we thought it may have done. That wasn't the reason for the 90-odd score. That was essentially it. So, I'd still probably be going Young. I just feel, I don't know why, I just feel like Young's the lesser of a player, but you always keep the better player. That's probably one of my things that long-term I think works well, but we are down to that little 3-week play now and those types of things that we're doing, because Sinclair's a great option to be grabbing. That's almost part of that conversation. We were just talking a bit before about Nick Newman versus Nick Newman, and then you're looking at Sinclair as another option there, and I'm sort of weighing that up a fair bit. I don't know exactly where I've landed on that. Sinclair's been sort of my gut feel recently, just because of the way he scores. I think Nick Newman can score really well, but he does it in patches, and that's one of my scary things. Like, what happens if he doesn't have that big quarter? Or what happens if he has 2 big quarters like that? And that's a difference. So, but yeah, the Simpkin to Poo, because I don't know if that's really needed as part of that, but I'd ride out Simpkin from here. I think, while he had an 80, if you needed the cash, it is a play, if that's something that you needed in that position. But yeah, I think I'd back in Simpkin, because their run's great too. Like, we don't have to stress too much about what North Melbourne are doing there. Having West Coast this week is the thing. Yep, they've got Bulldogs, but that can be easy enough for midfielders, although it is a little bit orange on cow scale. Hawthorn could be tough, but last round, who knows what that's going to look like? Are Hawthorn still going to be in the mix for that? Is that going to be a free-flowing game? It is in Lonnie, so we get that one to finish off. Hopefully it's a Saturday afternoon. We find that out tomorrow morning, the official game. So this feels like the latest I reckon it's ever been to announce that last round, to get it a fortnight out.
But that would be because how tight the ladder is, like they usually do it based on who's playing finals, and we don't know yet.
Power of the broadcasters is what that's all about, so they can choose the games that they want in the time slots that they want. So we can blame Channel 7, or not really blame them. We can thank Channel 7, because that's why players are getting so much more money, and we're able to probably have nice things as fantasy footy fans and footy supporters in general. But getting back to that question though,
Sarong to Steele.
Sarong to Steele's not
good.
I think I'd do that over the Simpkin to Poo if that was a part of that. Dacos and Young to Sinclair. Sinclair's an upgrade on both of them, I feel like, for this week and probably over the next couple at least. So, but Sarong to Steele's looking a good one for me. Like, Sarong played well on the weekend, and still, he got to that 90. It was one of the reasons I traded him a fortnight ago. And while I didn't love it, but that's this time of the year that you're doing it, just feel like that real ceiling stuff. He's only had that one decent one.
That was round one, wasn't it?
But like, even in that last, whatever it's been, 10 weeks or whatever, he sort of had that 120 a couple of weeks ago, and that was sort of the only one that's really been there in anything.
Yeah. Just one thing I want to touch on Philippou as well, Warnie, was obviously I've got this question a couple of times from people across the socials asking about Philippou F6 or F7. Is Is he a guy that with these matchups and this role, are you happy just to trust him at F6 and not worry about the loop if you sort of maybe need the cash for the moves? Are you happy to trust him on field?
Yeah, I am. I think I'll sit here. Well, I need to. That's probably where I'm at with my side to be able to do that. But I'd be confident enough to do that there, because who else are you doing it with, and what other scores have they pumped out? That's the other part. Like, if you're whoever you've backed in, even when you've backed in your Brian Myers, and I think he's probably the key name of that. The people sort of thought that they'd go there, and he is that F6 guy based on what he's done this year. But yeah, I think you can back it in, but ideally that F7 play is exactly what you want, especially with the Saints. I bought my red dot last week, actually being a Saints guy, because they do have these later games in the round. So it should hopefully work out with whatever else you're playing with. And one of those things, though, with the rolling lockout, I mentioned before, you can have a bit of a look, and then your trade plans can pivot too. That's the other part of it too.
The problem I have this week, my F6, F7, they play at the same time. These bloody double up games on the Saturday 1:45. Why do they do that? Anyway, so I might get Philippou in and just put him on the field for that reason.
Yeah, with Richmond this week, I think it's a good week to be doing that. Charles Van Leeuwen, I hope I've got that correctly. Apologies, Chas, if I've got that incorrect. But he said, boys, pick one rest of season, Cherry or Marshall. So firstly, I'll say I think it's both. You need both in teams. So just for the sake of the question, who do we think, and I'll go sort of round with all three of you and see who will be the R1 for the remainder of the season. Tim, I'll start with you, mate. Who do you reckon finishes R1 out of those two?
Oh, look, mate, I don't have an answer. That's something that I'm currently in kind of research about, because I've got to make that decision. I thought I would have had enough cash this week to get both of them in, but I'm just a bit short. So I'm looking at potentially one of them and a Max Gorn as an alternative, but I've got to try and figure out which one. So yeah, I'm curious to hear what the boys have to say.
Yep, beautiful. Jordox?
Well, I think when you look at the fixture, it's got to be Marshall. He's got three really nice matchups for Rucks in. Where have I got that? He's got
Richmond, Geelong,
Tigers, Cats, and Blues. Yeah, so Nank, and then whatever Geelong are doing that week, and then I don't think DeConing gets back in time. So on paper, on paper I'd say Marshall, but my gut and what I'm just feeling about this Cherry boy, I think he could do it. Now, to overtake Marshall's actual average and literally be number one, he's got to be work to do there. But for the next 3 weeks, who scores more? I'm happy to just say the X-Man. I just have a feeling about it. He's a freak show. I know Calvin mentioned on yours, Warnie, that he got to 85 points before he touched the ball. Like, possessed it. And that's not a one-off. Like, his tackling and his score build, maybe since the midway point of the year, has just been extraordinary, and it just keeps happening. And as a non-owner, it is just very frustrating to watch.
Exactly. Well, and even Cherry's got pretty good matchups as well. So like this week's got West Coast. We just saw Wits go massive. He's then got English next week, who he went bigger on early in the season. And then he finishes off with Hawthorn, and Meek's been giving up points for the season. So both have got good runs down the year. So Warnie, where are you landing?
They're both epic matchups, and the correct answer is having both of them. So it would feel hard not having either, like that you're actually having to choose between them. So it would be X for me, because I think it's that score build. Those tackles are ridiculous. Like, that's a big part of it. Joked about the fact that he doesn't really care about his hit out to advantage, because his advantage is getting the tackle afterwards, because if he taps it down
+5,
he can go and do that. But that's almost what it feels like. He just follows up with that. And you look at those matchups, like, you could nearly argue that is nicer than St Kilda's matchup, having West Coast this week. So was it a 140 or something like that? I think from Witsy last week, it was huge, whatever it was.
15 hit outs.
Moving into Tim English, which he could seriously break. Like, he would almost kill Tim English out there. And then who knows with the Meek matchup. But I think it's X for me, because those 150s as VCs as well, that would be hurting you if you didn't have that one. That's the other side of it, because the English one, while he's been great, it's that you want these ceiling scores. And, Marshall's had a couple of massive scores, but it's been a while since he's done that, whereas you're going 2 weeks in a row, you're getting 150s from X, and it might go against some of Jaden's thoughts, because I don't think he loves form as much as others, but I believe a fair bit in form because there is that confidence side of players. They know what's working for them, and what's working for them. And North Melbourne have been better. They obviously won on the weekend. Not that you'd take that to the bank of beating Richmond or anything like that, but that if he's going out there and going, my tackling game's working, that's helping us, he'll just continue with that. So I think, the matchups are a toss-up, but it's just that ceiling that we've seen in those last couple that you'd be going in, and that's what hurts if you are that non-owner. I don't want to even ask how it feels, boys, but if you're getting there and going, you're seeing your opponent having a 150 as a vice captain, and they've done that early in the round, and you're going, you're playing catch up.
Yeah. And even with Sherry, like on the weekend at quarter time, because I was against him in a final, in a league matchup, and obviously I'm against him in overall, but he was only on 20 odd at quarter time, and he'd had no tackles, and I thought, oh, okay, he's just going to have an 80 to 90. He goes ahead and lays 7 tackles in the second quarter. Like, would you just calm down, big boy? But
it's 2 weeks in a row. His second quarter's been so big as well. Like, that's the thing. Like, he's just started over there. It just takes a big fella a bit to warm up. The big tractor needs to get started, and then off he goes.
I think what we're witnessing here too is the next Grundy / Gawn for the next 5, 6, 7 years. Maybe. Yeah, well, I didn't want to use the word, Warnie, but geez, I reckon in 3, 4 years could be talking about it.
Yeah, no,
he's only 25.
Yeah, definite shout. And I guess the thing to sum up as a non-owner, the way it feels is if we all remember the Chief on the bounce when he was doing the dribble kicks, the meter of like the anger just going up, it just builds up, and I'm like, I sit there saying, Tristan, I hate you, but I don't, because I don't have anything against him. I hate myself for not having him in my team and doing that. Bloody sweet.
You just got to not watch the North games, Bales.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you got Sheasel now, so that's all right.
Yeah, but no, just talking on Tristan Cherry's form before we go on to the next question as well. Like after he went that 57 against Witsy and then 98 against the Bombers, from round 11 onwards, he's gone 120, 129, 107 in a game where he was going on for a 120 against Collingwood, but they obviously overran him in the last quarter. 99 against Gawn, 129, 118, 94 against Grundy, tough matchup, 124, 156, 150. So 5 of his last 6 have been over 118, which is absolutely crazy.
And his 6 marks, times, I'll just jump in, 6 times double-digit tackles.
Yeah, exactly. And also his last 2 weeks, his marks are up. He's had 5 and 6, and before that he was going at 2s and 3s. So if his marks are up and he can get some touches and actually have a good first quarter, we could be seeing some massive scores. So yeah,
some 200s on the horizon. All right.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a while since we've had one. I think Nick Rewalt was the last 200 score we had, I reckon.
But we haven't had those real massive ceilings, have we? It feels like a couple of years since we've had.
Zorko gave us the 180. I think Brayshaw did a 180 maybe the year before last.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hasn't been too many.
Yeah. And then Rocky had a couple of 180s and
it sort of goes back to those times. I'll have a look. I've got that in our little
Tom Mitchell had a year, 2018, I think. 2017, 2018. Well, the last 200 was Nick Rewalt, and I know that because I was in a grand final. I was in a grand final against someone, and we only had like half a dozen uniques, and he had Rewalt's 200. So
2016 was the last one. So 2016 was the 200, but it was 2012 when he had his 204. But even back from that, Tom Mitchell had a 195 in 2018, 2017, 2012, 2010. 2019, we got a 192 from Cogs. Rewalt, Jack Rewalt had a 192 in 2018. But you're sort of looking here, the only ones even after 2020 as such was Jesse Hogan had that round 23 one last year, if you remember that one against Hapless Dons. He had a 188, but that's the only one since 2019 that we've had sort of in that 180 plus type sort of range. 184 plus it is that I've got there.
I thought Hogan was definitely hitting 200 that day because he got there really early, then slowed. Anyway,
Bombers decided to play some defense after getting absolutely smoked in that game. That was shocking.
Yes. Yep.
Exactly. Jaden's got a comment here as well. He said, "Who said James Harden is the beard? It is actually the Godfather Warnie." So bit of basketball reference there, liking that.
Actually, I need to trim it up. I think that might be one of my jobs to do once this season finishes. Actually, take some maintenance of myself a little bit, maybe trim up the beard and those sorts of things. It's been one of those seasons.
Yep, exactly right. We've got another super chat here from Exceptions. So I'll go to Tim for this one because we've done one of each of the boys. So we'll go Tim. What about Nick Martin to Colby McKercher and Grundy to Marshall? Would you tick those moves off?
All right, Grundy to Marshall, you definitely tick it off, right?
But he's got to fund it.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, look, I mean, that's probably a pretty big upgrade. If we look at the last couple of weeks, I mean, last week that was 50 points, right? So, and look, I mean, I certainly don't mind McKercher. I mean, it's not a trade that, it really jumps out at me, but I mean, to generate the funds to make that other upgrade, I think you could do it. What do you boys think?
Well, Fish is a test for this week. I'd be surprised if he went straight back in, even if he is fit. Oh, could be the sub. Goodness. Yeah. You also got Tom Power doing some crazy things. He's a F7 option too. Stevenson's been floating around there. So, but in saying that, McKercher, he scored 97, but that was with a lot of time on the bench in the fourth. I don't know, Warnie, are they worried about his load still?
So that's our little inside mail. I couldn't buy into it because I'm very risk adverse. Yep, you only have to get through 3 weeks, but geez, are you? I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't go into Colby, whether it's this week or next week. I think that would be a worry for me that you would have to move that. But yeah, like you said, it's about funding that move. If he plays, he's not going to be far enough away from Martin, for example, potentially outscoring, and that's getting you Grundy to Marshall, which should be a pretty decent upgrade. So, it's a good logic, good thinking. I think I'm just a bit more risk adverse, but you can take it on a little bit more when you've got 3 weeks to go. But yeah, he's not on the injury list or anything like that. So it's just, if he's pulled up a bit sore, which he has been, they are going to look after their little kid. So that's the thing. Like even Wardlaw's got the concussion and that he's still part of the 12 days. So, they're going to play it pretty safe with any of their kids, I think.
He's not exactly dirt cheap anymore, Colby. So, in that bracket, you've got a Luke Ryan, you've got a Dan Houston, you've got Ed Richards, who might have a good time in Adelaide this week. And even Hayden Young's down there, but you've probably already got him. So, yeah, maybe a Luke Ryan. I mean, I don't know how you could recommend him after the hell he's put me through, but just trade him out too. Anyway, there's other options.
Just a tidbit with that game, the Bulldogs and Crows game. It is the first game in over 5 years that they've played each other where it'll be at either the Bulldogs' main home ground in Marvel or Adelaide Oval. The last 5 been at Mars, and the other one was at People First Stadium during COVID. So very interesting.
There you go.
It'll be at a normal ground this time. And obviously, shout out to Jake, who's here in Adelaide with me. I'm sure he'll be on the game this weekend, and we'll actually be able to see his Doggies against the Crows live in person.
About time they stopped sending us to Ballarat. Anyway,
But no, with Colby, I probably agree with you boys. Well, and if something flared up during game, he could be a candidate for obviously sub out. And he did have 13 kick-ins, played on from 11 on the weekend, and scored the 97. So obviously a lot of kick-ins to get to that score. But another one of those guys, put the asterisk next to potentially for next year, priced in the 80s, could be a guy that we definitely discuss next year. We'll go to the next one, which will be from Shady Force. So he says, I can't decide between getting Newman or Sinclair for Martin, and he's going Philippou to Dowling. Hang on, so I'm can't decide between getting in. Okay, hang on. I'll put this question up on the screen because there's a couple of options here. So what's he doing? So can't decide between getting in Newman or Sinclair for Martin, Philippou for Dowling, Marshall for English. Please help. So I think he's deciding between 3 trades. So what do you guys reckon?
Oh, no, I read that. 3. I read that as he's doing Dowling to Philippou. And then, I know.
He's got Marshall for English for Marshall, and then he's looking at one of Newman or Sinclair for Martin. For me personally, I'm English to Marshall and Dowling to Philippou.
Yes.
And you keep Martin for the week.
Yep. I'd be doing that over 3.
I'd agree with that too.
Yeah. How do you actually want it as a obviously Bombers man, Gold Coast? How do you reckon Nick Martin does go this week? Because I think Gold Coast have been a bit better for defenders, at least recently, anyway.
They have been. It's one of those things that I think, then that's it, the halfback role. A halfback is doing pretty well. I know we're sort of going against what some of the DVP stuff was looking like as well, but you have to, sometimes this is, I guess, what we do a little bit more is dig into the player, what the player might be. Some of that obviously takes in the average type stuff of the types of players. And so you get there. I think Gold Coast were giving up heaps. Zorko went big. Whitfield went big. It was just like the one player had big scores that is that type of player. And so that's what it's been looking like against Gold Coast. So who knows, though? Like Gold Coast, they obviously lost on the weekend where they probably should have won that one, even though it was away from home. Do they get their shit together? I don't know. Like it's one of those things where the things have to change a little bit there.
Their season's done, so you might, watch them probably play out of their skins for the next 3. But,
or try
but I think that if Nick Martin's playing half back, he's scoring really well. My worry is that with Dersma out, and he's kind of like that little bit of a weakest link as such in the side where it could be. Like even on the weekend, he kicked 2 goals and had 27 points in the last quarter to get himself that 80 score. So, that could have been a pretty ugly sort of one, but that's where he was playing on the wing. So actually scored all right when he was on the wing later in the game. So, but knowing players that get 2 goals, it was even that one, he kicked 4 goals in the last quarter when the Bombers were coming back in that game. He was quite good with that a few weeks ago. But I don't know. I'm happy to trade out Nick Martin. I feel like he's a bit of that weaker link for the range of outcomes are there, as the draft doctors would say. And there are a few that probably are on the negative side of that.
Yeah.
But out of those, you'd trust Martin over Dowling and you'd trust him over English. I mean, not that
you're getting better upside. I think that's probably the key to it. Nick Martin's crap score might be an 80 and what you're trading into might not be, much more than that as such. Whereas I feel like an English to Marshall, that could have that 30 to 40 points difference in just that move. And obviously Dowling, you're doing that move where you're potentially, being able to take that loop. But that could be another one. The loop type side of that is that whoever you're playing with, you can you might have already taken a decent enough score if you are, because I would hope that Dowling wasn't like an F6 at the moment, but if you're trading him to get in Filippo, I reckon that's that's probably looking at that F7 type move or benching one of those other dudes, which you could be doing the loop with anyway. So it could be one that you're thinking on your feet with a little bit on that move anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully the Bombers maybe bring in a Setterfield, maybe plays that wing, or even I think he had a good game on the weekend, and then he
has been good in the VFL.
And then Archie Roberts looked good on the weekend, so maybe does he get maybe a role on a wing? So I have to see what happens with the Bombers. But yeah, Nick Martin, I think, is probably a guy we definitely can all trade out. Callum Fife's got a very similar question to the last one, but he's saying, would you prefer to trade Nick Martin to Sinclair and miss out on Ron Marshall, and he's already got Cherry, or would you go Myers down to Philippou and English up to Marshall? So, Warren, I think you're saying obviously the cash from F6 is helping you with those trades. You're happy to go Myers down to Philippou, getting Marshall and keep Nick Martin, or would you do the first 2 trades and miss out Marshall?
I feel like I don't like to use that word no-brainer for me, but I think that just feels like, and that would be a move that I'd 100% pull to. I think like you can get very frustrated by a player, but I think you get frustrated by someone that has dropped, 250s in the last 3 weeks or whatever it is by Myers, or there've been a couple of ordinary ones there in that. So yeah. And then for someone that, what's the worst case scenario? Philippou scores as well or a little bit below, but you've banked the cash to be able to make that upgrade that you've probably wanted to be doing for a couple of weeks now when you keep seeing Marshall pop those ones on top of your head and English just scrapes himself to those sorts of numbers where, 10 weeks ago you're probably going, oh yeah, okay, tick, tick, tick. But now it's business end. You want those extra 30 or 40 points.
Well, the bar has just been set so high by the other two. It's a different story.
And then when they've got good matchups as well, that's what makes that a little bit trickier. But Myers' last 5 scores, he's gone 67, 116, 52, 98, and 53. And funny enough, the 3 low scores have all come at GMHBA. So very, very weird how that's working out there. And I'm getting annoyed at like a guy like Toby Green over the last 4 weeks, but he's gone 3 scores over 90 out of his last 4. So, like, it just shows that those forwards are there. But we do have a question.
That's overs, though, Bales. That's overs.
Yeah.
You're getting overs from Toby Green, my friend.
Exactly.
I've been telling him every week, get out before that hurts you.
Well, he's gone this week. We'll go through trades after, but he's gone
Good.
this week. So it's one of those ones. Handshake, Toby. Thanks for your service the last 4 weeks. But we'll get a better option there. But One Man Band does have the credit. So he's saying he's got the top 4 forwards, and then Jai Simpkin. But then again, I don't know if we can be calling Isaac Henny top 4 the way he's been going at the moment. But he said, who would you guys get for that F5 and F6 spot? So I'll sort of go around the room and suggest a couple of names. So Warnie, is it Philippou and someone else, or have you got maybe 2 other options maybe you'd have ahead if you could pick anyone?
If I didn't own Tom Powell previously and traded him out and missed out on those last 2 scores, he would be very high on my radar because that is working for him. Like even last week, he wasn't a defender. He spent a little bit of time back there, but he was just given a bit of a midfield license and a license to run and roam, and it looked pretty nice. So you had like your Stevenson, who was playing back, whereas you wouldn't have called that exactly what Powell's role is. So, he would be in that mix there as well if you wanted to go a little bit different. But if you've been an owner, you got off for a reason. And as much as it hurts, you get those big ones on there. Sometimes it's like that ex-girlfriend that you might have thought was a good idea to keep sending those drunk text messages to. You don't want to. You shouldn't be doing that. So, anyway, that's he's there. Simpkin is still there because, North Melbourne have a couple of nice games, but I think that's sort of drying up a little bit now, which is where I was liking them. But yeah, it's hard. It's just, as it has been, the worst position to buy into with what you've got is more the straight bat option if he wasn't in your side, and you get that there. But I don't love it because I think you're paying a lot more than you really should be, especially if you are trying to fund some moves. And it doesn't hurt to have that cash in the bank for next week, because if one of those times you need it, like if you had that 100 grand floating, a lot of people might be in a better position this week with what they were doing if they were moving that sort of English to Marshall type move, needing that 100K to do that type of move. So yeah, it is just a shit one. I just really hate this position, and I think you just sit on the back end of going, if you get the cheaper guy, at least you haven't priced yourself out of, like, you haven't just sort of tried to pay up for. So personally, I'd probably go, and I think I can even do it, I'm going Philippou over Moore, and I think that's just for that little bit of value that's there. I feel like that role's great. Moore can score in the role that he plays, which isn't the perfect role as such, but he can score all right in that. So, yeah, it feels like a really weird thing, me doing that, but that's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah. And Moore's got a couple of good matchups. He's got Carlton this week, then finishes off with Richmond and North Melbourne. So it'll be interesting to see.
So
maybe
it should be good.
Yeah, maybe people jump on him next week. Maybe you miss the Carlton matchup, might be a bit tougher, and then you go into the next 2. So, definitely one to think of. Jordox, any sort of similar names to Warnie? You wouldn't add any other names, or?
Yeah, I would add one. It goes against, the concept of, spending down because they're all giving similar output. But there's a bloke who's been sitting on the sidelines for 4 weeks, fit as a fiddle, not injured, and he will be absolutely itching to get out there, and that's Isaac Rankin. And before the suspension, we were starting to talk about him as a possible F4, F5 type of guy. He'd be a brave man to jump onto him this week. But what have we got? We got the Dogs in Adelaide. We've got the showdown.
Then
Sydney away. Yeah. So look, maybe the fixture's not there, but I don't know. I've just got a feeling he's going to come in. He's going to be in the midfield as he was, and maybe he could at least give a similar output to a Dylan Moore. Maybe.
Yeah.
We just
Can I throw you another little brave one that our editor sent me a message of today? Which inside midfielder has which inside midfield team has the best matchups for inside mid to finish off the year? Gold Coast. They go Bombers, Melbourne and Richmond. Now, there's been a bloke suspended there as well for them. Alex Davies scored 97 in his last game before that suspension. There's not enough there because that was his first game for quite a while as well. It would be a brave person. But if you were looking at that, it's Philippou over him. Like, that's not a no-brainer. But if you wanted
to... Port, though.
if you wanted to go something different, just because if you're looking at those matchups and going, hello, Bombers, Melbourne, and Richmond, that should be pretty decent if he does have that role. But, mate, you've been on the sidelines for 3 weeks. It was a 97 prior to that. Yeah. I just wanted to throw it out there so it's on the record somewhere, because when he does go well, I can take a victory lap on that
claim
one.
it.
But there's no way in the world that I would ever do that move.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because you did remind me, actually, I was actually going to do that. I was actually going to add Alex Davies in my Shiver League. So hopefully no one is tuning in on that.
They are.
I just added Alex Davies. I just added Alex Davies on the
you did?
on the thing. So,
No.
sorry, I dropped your mate Sam Berry. He was the weakest link, unfortunately, on my team. Last average.
I'm just pleased you had him in the first place, mate.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I think we can all agree, Tim, that Jim 910 has got the best trades of the probably of the week, you could say. He said thoughts on Whitfield and Cherry in for Nick Martin and Tim English.
Yeah, well, you're not complaining with those trades, are you?
No, yeah, it's nice. Is that a brag?
Yeah,
it's a brag.
It might be more of a brag, yeah.
And more power to it.
Yeah,
that's
exactly right. There you go. Pat Jade said he got the first like on the video, so thanks, Jade, mate. Make sure you do smash a like on the video if you are tuning in. Corey did say as well he couldn't afford Nick Newman from Nick Martin, so that super chat we had earlier. So, it's a tough one there, unfortunately. Power Prawn Star asked Tim, he said, did you scratch the Bentley?
Yeah, mate.
Sounds like more than a scratch from the expletives.
She'll be right. Nah, look, maybe that might need a new front bumper, but whatever. That's what insurance is for, right?
Yeah, exactly. We've got a couple more here just before we finish off. So Lockie Gillespie says, hey, legends, can you tick off Martin and Mason Wood to Tom Powell and Nasai Wangini Millera? Don't have Shees, but taking that on this week. Car crash of a season for guests. So, Warnie, what do you... Well, obviously, as a guy you mentioned about Tom Powell there, would you tick off Nick Martin and Wood to Powell and Nasai and miss Sheasel? Or do you think Sheasel against West Coast, do you need him?
Sheasel against West Coast would be nice, but I guess if you've taken it on for this long, maybe, is there a little bit of pride in that? I think Nasai is going to be great. Like he would be a nice, fun one to have. The way he plays he's a good fantasy footy player, is what we do like about him. What do matchups look like for that? Those halfbacks? Well, Saints have got a good run. Richmond, Geelong in the next two. North are all greens, so on Cow's scale of hardest with West Coast, Western Bulldogs, Hawthorn. Jeez. Can you get Sheasel? Can you choose Sheasel over Nasai, or does the cash mean that you need to go there? That'd be my question. I'd be quite happy to get Powell if you Powell and Nasai as that combo, because I'm not sure. Oh well, I guess it could be a Pooh or someone else instead if you were getting Sheasel.
So would you go? Well, probably you can do Powell and Nasai or Phillipou and Sheasel. That might be the combo you can go.
I like
Phillipou and Sheasel would be my straight bat play, I think.
Yeah, and then you could get.
Could you get it to Sinclair? I'd be going Sinclair over Wangini Millera.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the difference between those guys?
About 30K?
40, yeah, 30, 40K, I think.
So, look, that might be the difference.
Yeah.
And, I don't mind Powell. I don't mind the idea of people jumping back on that. I think
my ego just can't do it. I'm just
That's
one of my issues. Playing this game for 20-something years, and you have all these ideas in your head that you can't do, and it probably does come back to the limited trades and stuff like that as well.
Yeah,
but that's
it's an old school mindset, and you've just got to swallow it. And it's hard.
But
with Powell, though, actually, just we were talking about before. He went to halfback the week before and looked good, but we've got McKercher come back, we've got Fisher, we've got Stevenson. So then he's been more in the middle, but Wardlaw's been out for 2 weeks. So there are a lot of question marks on where he fits. He is flexible, and he's going to be a really good player
as well
down the track because he's had such flexibility as a young player. But yeah, if you could go Phillipou and Sheasel, I think that would be the
Thing is, why did we trade him
element.
out? He scored 41 and 63, and the roles weren't terrible for that either. So
Yeah, that's true.
that's the thing. So
Yeah,
it hasn't been a great season having him.
No.
He started off like a house on fire as a must-have early on, but getting off at the right time and staying off was probably the right thing to do.
But it could just be a confidence thing, you know. Once these kids they get a game like that under the belt, and the sky's the limit. But
and
we won't know.
Coast.
Yeah,
he had his big game a fortnight ago in Hobart at Blundstone Arena. So that was his big 122 game where he was playing that halfback. Does he go down there and goes, and Clarko's like, this worked for him being back down there. That wind blows around. Was he the right type of player to be playing there? And you go with that. Like I'm not inside any AFL club thinking about that, but surely there are parts of that, like of going, grounds will have different conditions. Are there better players that, they maybe don't want that high marking player there? Maybe they are looking for keeping that ball low and those chips, because that's what he was doing in that game. Like, what do you have? 6 marks, I think, in that one it was. But he was just everywhere. He was taking kick-ins in that. He was just one of those players that had that. Yeah, and I watched that way too closely for someone that bloody traded him out about 5 minutes before that game started. So I'm bitter.
Yeah, I didn't realise you'd done it that actual week. That is painful.
Yeah, DC. I think DC did it as well. So a few people, did it.
Two genius minds did it, so it can't have been that bad to do.
No, that's it.
Final 2 questions will go here as well, and I do like this question from Tony Ford here. He says he's going English to Marshall, but he needs to raise some cash. Would we be going Zach Taylor to a 200k rookie on the bench, or going Myers down to Philippou? So Tim, what would you be doing? Would you be doing the bench downgrade and keeping Myers, or go and grab Philippou and do the trade?
What was the other trade?
So he's going English to Marshall. He just needs the cash to go up. So you rookie shuffle, or
I think you do that. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you can get the rookie down and still get the trade done, I wouldn't mind holding on to Myers if you can loop him. But I mean, if you need the cash, I wouldn't have a problem getting Myers out for Philippou.
Yeah.
I think he's got a better role.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's my default answer on that, I think, is I think Philippou will score more than Myers. You might as well go with that. And if he does have that position to loop, you might as well be looping with old mate Philippou coming into it, because you probably feel like if you're needing that higher score, I feel like that Philippou might have the role to be able to get that, whereas it would take Myers. If you had Myers rolling into it or something like that, you'd feel like, geez, that could be that 50, or it could be a 110 max. Whereas, oh mate, Philippou, what was it, 120 did he have a couple of weeks ago? So, or prior to his
the Swans
injuries,
game, I think 119 maybe.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
117. Yeah,
let's be brutally honest here with Brian Myers, and it's no disrespect to him as a player, but as a fantasy player. He's only, someone might disagree with that. He's only in these conversations because of how bereft our forward lines have been. So,
100%.
I think now that he's hit a 50 at a really crucial time of year, you can quite safely move him on.
Yep, agreed. And final question we'll go from is Lil Riddy. He says English to Cherry, but does he go Max Holmes or Nick Martin to one of Philippou or Powell? So I'll probably start off with this and saying I wouldn't be trading Max Holmes, because he's got Freo this week. Then he goes West Coast. So he goes St Kilda, then West Coast. So 2 great matchups. And we're obviously talking about for Nick Martin. So obviously Philippou or Powell, if we had to pick 1 and 2, is it Philippou with the better role, Jordox?
Yeah, it feels safer.
Well, more secure role, I should say. Not
and there's a narrative that you can paint in your mind that says, Saints are out of finals. They've got nothing else to do but just see what these kids have got. And the fact that Philippou missed 2 weeks, came back in, straight back into it, I'd feel more confident in his role than Powers, which we just discussed at nauseam, that he could be here, there, or anywhere. And then, as Warnie said, why he traded him, he had the role, but his scoring was pittance. So, I like the poo.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I think the biggest thing for that, you just got to be thinking about, where does the logic of you making that move, where are you more comfortable with it being wrong for? And I think I'd be more comfortable with Philippou being wrong than
going back to Power.
Yeah, and that's mostly because I own the bloody brick. But anyway, but the thing is, things can change for that. If Wardlaw's back next week, whatever happens there, whatever it is, Anyway, that is the other thing about North Melbourne. We talk about their nice run, but that last round, they do have Hawthorn, and I just wonder what happens in that match. Like, it is one of those things that could be a really positive thing, but if Hawthorn are really, like, if that does come down to them having to win that game against North, which they should win anyway, like, do things get ramped up a little bit of a notch? And yeah, those sorts of things, like that stuff is a bit of a worry.
Yeah,
exactly.
Good point.
I'll just shove these two at the end there, just because Riley Coe did say please, and obviously, and I'll start with Andrew Domahidi, who's obviously a good friend of the trades as well, doing a few Twitter spaces there. He says he's going Nick Martin to Nick Newman and Paddy Cripps to Jack Sinclair. Don't mind those trades.
Tick.
Beautiful.
I'd love to do that. That'd be nice to do that. Well done, Andy.
And then the final one from Riley Curry as well, because he said please here for that one, so we'll fit this one in as well. He said Heaney or Simpkin to Philippou so we can get Ryan Marshall for the other trade.
I'd have to go Simpkin out over Heaney, but
yeah,
I do get it. I do get the Heaney one. It's just not one that you think you can really, like, it's no point because everyone else will have him unless you really need to go unique and go different. But then far out, how hard would it be to just try to fight or barrack against Heaney in those
when you
matchups?
got Simpkin? The thing I will say about Heaney, I like it. I think it's, you know, it's brave, but I like it because, you know, obviously Heaney's scores have dipped somewhat. Well, since his suspension, really. My concern with Heaney is the very concern we've all had his whole career. So the last 3 weeks, Sydney are averaging 7.5 goals a game, which is extraordinary. When you, if you'd said that a month ago, they may need some goals. And
Parker
last time I checked,
team.
Isaac Heaney's a pretty good goal kicker, and you know Papley's not in. I don't know. Do they look to move him a little bit more forward in the last few weeks? I don't know. But if you jumped off now and he was more forward the next few weeks, you'd be a genius. Whereas Simpkin, I think, will be mid. Yeah.
The one thing I would say with Heaney, though, to finish off is, they've got Collingwood this week, then they go the Bombers under the roof, and then they've got the Crows in the final round. So 3 decent enough matchups. Even if he went forward, he could go well. So I agree with, I'd be going Simpkin out as well and holding Heaney just in case. But as Warnie said, unless you need to swing to the fence, and Jordox said as well, then you can obviously go Heaney out instead. But beautiful. Alrighty, we'll cut off there. Very good question as well. But yeah, we will cut it off there. But I appreciate everyone that sent in their questions and tuned in live as always. And thanks to Jared, Corey, and Exceptions for the super chats. We'll just quickly go around the room and go through our trade plans for round 22. So, Warnie, when you kick us off, what are your current plans for your trades this week?
So current plans, I was looking at basically the Dowling to Philippou move because I've got the cash to be able to do whatever else I wanted to do at the moment. But Dowling to Philippou, what is it? It's actually only 8K to get from Dowling to Philippou, which is crazy. But what that does, I've got freaking Mason Wood. So it's no point of having them as my F6 and F7 loop. So I might just dump Mason Wood to Philippou, have some cash for next week. Then my other move would be basically Nick Martin, I'm feeling is my weaker link. Then he would go to Jack Sinclair. I just feel like I'm gaining the points out of that move. And that's what it is, because everywhere else feels okay, touch wood. But it is a full-blown luxury trade week for me where I don't even have, like, I'm not confident on any of those, apart from the fact that Philippou, I prefer him as F6 and Mason Wood sort of thing. But it's just, I could buy into Dylan Moore, which is maybe what I would have done 5 weeks ago. But, it's just a really interesting part of the season to be doing these moves because I don't even have thoughts for next week either. That's the other side of it, like of what you're doing. Because if I'm carrying, because that would carry me, I think I'm carrying 150, 200K by doing that move or something, which is a lot of coin at this point of the season. And there's almost the cash in my side. There's probably actually no upgrade that I could actually make for that. I wouldn't actually be able to spend all of that cash with my players. Yes, it might be a Philippou up or something like that, but there's no one that I want to make that upgrade with.
Yeah, exactly. No, I like it. Jordox?
Yeah, so I was going to go Grundy to probably Marshall last week, but because he was playing Port, I just thought, oh, give him one more. And then Laddams was a late in. So that was terrific. Yeah, so I might just do that this week. I've got the cash, I think, to do that. But the second trade, I'm stuck. So I thought I was so smart 2 weeks ago. I brought in a Hawthorn red dot forward because they play every Sunday till the last round, which we'll find out tomorrow morning. And the plan has been to just play musical chairs with Simpkin and Peatling at F6, F7. But they're playing the same time this week. So I didn't look into that detail. So I'm thinking maybe just Peatling to Philippou and then Grundy to the ruck I want. But I also really like Nick Martin to Jack Sinclair. I've just been looking at Sinclair's numbers at Marvel. And, yeah, the role he has, it's kind of like Tom Stewart. Like, he's getting CBAs, he's taking kick-ins, he's going behind the ball to slow things down. I really think he could be the number one defender for the last few weeks. So the long and short of it is, I'm not sure, but they're the three kind of options that I'll be playing with. And look, if Josh Kelly's in, which he is at this point, and if Cogs happens to get through and he's in, that might make trading Peatling out a little bit easier to do.
Tim, obviously you said you tossed on a couple options. Listening to the boys, have you sort of got a bit more clear idea?
Yeah, I'm still playing with it. Look, my forward line I feel pretty set. Like I got the four, and I got Dylan Moore and Jai Simpkin and the Pooh, so I got the loop there. Midfield's looking all right, except I got Caleb Sarong and Tom Green, which I'm a bit worried about. I mean, not so worried about Sarong this week. Excuse me. Nick Martin definitely worries me in the back line. So, but I think the biggest differential, sorry, coughing into the mic, guys. I think the biggest differential for me is in that ruck line. Like I got Tim English and Brodie Grundy. I've got the money to go both of those out and to either a Cherry or a Rowan Marshall. I can't go to both of them, but I can use Max Gorman in their place, which I think Maxi probably will do pretty well still. So, but it's just like whether I, Maxi over the top of English or whether I upgrade Martin instead or, what were you going to say, Bart?
I was going to say I saw a photo online today about Max Gorman's, the photo of his foot, and it's like essentially purple and black, like around his ankle. Oh, okay. So not looking too great.
But he's adamant he'll play through. So yeah, if they're out of finals, does he play every week?
There's that red flag, isn't it?
Fuck. Yeah. So yeah, maybe it will be like a Grundy to a Marshall or something like that. Maybe a Nick Martin because I don't have the money to get English to a Cherry. Yeah, I don't know whether it's Cherry or Marshall this week. That'll be one of the big decisions to make. Actually, let's throw it. Which would you guys go if you had to choose this week, Cherry or Marshall?
Well, I am
X.
Only this week, just this week.
Cherry.
X. He's got the Eagles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's Cherry for this week.
What was it, a 142 or something like that? So.
I just want, you know what? It's so silly, but I just want to have him. I just want to be a part of. I remember that year, Cherry, when he broke out, and now look at him. No, I had him that year for 3 weeks.
At least you can go on the players' trip. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Bales, what about you, mate?
And then, my trades are done Sunday night, and they're going to stay the same. It'll be Toby Green down to Matthias Philippou, and it'll be Tim English up to Tristan Cherry. So I'm very happy with those trades, and hopefully gets me the job done over Mitch this week. So
the thing about Bales is he's so indecisive. He can never decide.
Yeah, some week. No, it's either I'm dead set
previous
what I'm doing,
years,
or I'm indecisive. But
no, I love those moves.
No, he's really backed himself this year, and it's fucking really showed. So.
Absolutely.
Just no hat for me, unfortunately. But hopefully we get one in the AFL.
It'll be your best year yet, right?
Currently not, but if I can have a good couple of weeks to get in the top 500, then it would be. So, but yeah, if I don't get a hat now, hopefully I get one in the AFL Fantasy, which will be starting very soon as well.
You're going to win the Content Creators Cup. That's more prestigious.
Not if the War Dogs have anything to say about it. This could be a great game. We could be taking each other on next week.
Oh, I love it.
Right. It's pretty fucking competitive this year. It is. It's going to be a good finish to the year, especially with Mitch so high up there as well.
Yeah, exactly. And we also will have an AFL Fantasy League as well. I'll tweet that out later on when we can. But boys, that'll be where we call it. Long podcast, but it's been a very good one and good to have the Warn Dog on. So Warnie, I'm sure everyone knows where they can find you across the socials. But anything that you wanted to sort of shout out, the Patreon, obviously the knockouts coming to a close as well. The few matchups.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty
just
cool,
few things you want to talk about.
The knockout's been really cool this year. We had Bic on board as a sponsor, so it was quite funny that we talked about their 4-colour pens a bit, and then we're able to get them to give us $5,000 to have as a prize for that. So that's been pretty cool. So yeah, it's the semi-final this weekend. So we'll see those teams match up, and then the big grand final to see who the last coach standing is. But that's been really cool. Patreon's been really fun this year. So yeah, it's all winding up to an end. Looking forward to hibernating a little bit after this season, but also just it's been an epic year. It's been a fun year, I think. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed all the different things that are out there. There's been some awesome content out there, and as I said, it's been an interesting season. So I think that's been a really great part of it, that everyone's been on board with all of that, all your awesome stuff that you do, Bales. Everyone does appreciate it, because it's you are a voice that is there. I don't think there's a day that I can go without seeing or hearing you pop up. So it's a really cool thing, as we see in the community, because we do have, I think, compared to other fantasy sports games, that other Supercoach one, I think we've got definitely a better community and a really engaged community compared to that, which is a really fun part to be a part of.
Yeah, no, beautiful. And maybe see me every day. Maybe it's a bad thing. Yeah, who knows? So,
we love it, mate. We love
Podcast, mate. That's what podcasts are for.
Yeah. Well, we won't be stopping. AFLW coming up, and we'll be doing more stuff for that. So, but no, thank you very much, Warnie, for jumping on. It's always a pleasure chatting fantasy with you. Jordox, mate, where can people find you in the subs account?
Yep. So on X at Jordox 2020, and if you haven't already subscribed to at AFL Subs, and we'll get the subs and the late changes to you. And if you turn notifications on, you won't even have to jump onto X to look for it. It'll just buzz in your pocket, so you can get on with your weekend, which we all would like to do, but we're all busy doing that.
I hope that half of that account's redundant for next year, that we don't have to worry about the subs. We just want it for the late changes.
I'll give you the hot tip right now. If the subs are gone, I don't think we'll be doing it just for the late changes. We'll let people find it on their own.
Yeah, exactly. And Tim, where can the people find you as well?
Tim Guest AU.
Beautiful. And you can find me at BalesDT. And if you've got any more questions you'd like to send through, then head over to Ask Me on Q, spelled QU.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. So you can ask all your AFL fantasy questions there. And also, if you've got AFLW fantasy questions with the official game being released, you can send through all your questions there as well, if you want help with all that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, beautiful. Another good pod. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be back on Friday for our pre-lockout chat at the normal time of 6 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Perth time. So make sure you guys tune into that as well. And if you did listen back to the pod, thank you very much. And if you can, please have us a 5-star rating and review. So thanks, everyone. Have a good couple of days, and we'll chat to you on Friday night. Thanks, guys. See ya.
See ya.
See ya.
Yeah, legends.
And then thank you, everyone, for tuning in on YouTube as well. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks, guys.